बार बार देखो, हजार बार देखो, ये देखने की चीज है हमारा दिलरुबा। ताली हो, ताली हो, ताली हो। हाँ जी हाँ, और भी होंगे दिलदार यहाँ, लाखों दिलों की बहार यहाँ, पर ये बात कहाँ। हाँ जी हाँ, और भी होंगे दिलदार यहाँ, लाखों दिलों की बहार यहाँ, पर ये बात कहाँ। ये बेमिसाल हुस्न लाजवाब ये अदा। ताली हो, ताली हो, ताली हो। Well, that was a famous Bollywood song titled Bar Bar Dekho, which also happens to be one of the favorites of my next guest. And that is Prateek, who is the general partner at Levitate Labs, which is an India-focused venture fund sharply focused on the Web3 ecosystem. And who else better qualified than Prateek to have this conversation with me around whether India would become the hub for Web3 startups in 2025. So let's get on with the chat. Good afternoon, viewers. I have with me today Prateek, who's the general partner at Levitate Labs, which is a Web3 native India-focused venture fund. So Prateek, it's great to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Thomas, for inviting me, and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always been intrigued about how the Web3 ecosystem in India is evolving. So I thought, no better than you to have a chat with, to really figure out whether India would emerge as the Web3 startup hub, in 2025. Lots of things will happen in 2025. And, I'm sort of figuring out whether India would actually emerge on the forefront of Web3. So, it's great to have this chat. But I thought it might be good, Prateek, just to get the conversation going. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your own personal Web3 journey.
Yeah, so I got into Web3 just post-COVID. Was associated with few of the accelerators in the past, and being in the founder's shoes myself in the previous 5 years in the Web2, I was more intrigued into the operator space. So that's where naturally the venture fund sort of thing came in. So started investing right from that capacity, and it's been like almost 4 years now. And I think the investing journey is going on pretty well. I mean, we've been fortunate to invest and support few of our Indian entrepreneurs and see some success stories emerging, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to have that KPI as well. What sort of success metrics were generated, and back few use cases which are really making some impact, over here in India, over there in the world, in that particular way.
Yeah, fabulous. So, I mean, great to see someone who's been here for 4+ years in the Web3 world. I'm a relative newcomer to Web3. I've been around less than 2 years. But I mean, when in the Web3, when you get into it, your learning curve is rapid, right? I mean, there's so much of innovation happening. Every day is a new day. And I know you and I don't think we've probably ever met in India, right? I mean, you're in Bangalore, I'm in Delhi. Most of our meetings have been in either in San Francisco or New York or Denver or whatever it is, right? At all these conferences. And, those are great learning opportunities because you get to meet a wide cross section of people. So most of my learning has come from, my own colleagues at Zeeve, as well as, people that I meet around the world at all these conferences. And it's never a dull day. I mean, I find it so exciting to be in Web3. Right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think that's the beauty of this industry, right? Either high or low, there's always some entertainment activity which is going on,
Yeah, absolutely.
which seems to be very stupid when you look from outside. But if you're really into the system, you're absorbed by it, and then what sort of the culture, the communities, what sort of
Yeah.
things are playing around. So it's always exciting day in
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. Yeah, so perhaps Prateek, we can dive a little deeper into what Levitate Labs is all about, maybe a little deeper, what kind of traction you've had. Yeah, and maybe you can also clarify, I mean, are you more like a venture fund, or it's an accelerator, or it's a combination of actually both of these? Because when I was looking at your website and trying to, I think you had some unique positioning of Levitate Labs. So it'll
Yeah,
be great to hear from you on all
sure.
that.
Yeah, so we initially started, as an accelerator. So in our first couple of cohorts, it was more about, we used to write checks of like $50,000 and have, a couple of percentage as equity tokens and support these entrepreneurs over a period of time. But I think the problem with the Web3 is the kind of evolution it happens. I think every 2 or 3 months, the industry is very, very skeptical on changes. And, I think it's more community oriented, more sort of rewarding to the users, sort of thing. So that's where we realized, I think, this model will not scale up as easily, particularly in India, given the kind of development that we are having. So that's where we changed or we repositioned into like a venture fund, sort of an aspect. So right now the way we do is we are focused on like Indian founders a lot, and a lot of things which are happening in India. So that's our core front. So on one side we are supporting and investing in a lot of Indian founders. These are primarily early stage founders who are probably going through their round one. Now, once this investment has been done, then we support them through various journeys. Support them in raising their next round, or connecting them to the next set of lead VCs, or even help them in GTM, or onboard more angels, or help them in BD aspects or community aspects, or whatever ways that are possible. I think we have a healthy portfolio of, I think, 60 plus companies now. And there have been a lot of learnings in the last 4 years. So our general approach is to give the right set of examples, so these founders know the advice where it is coming from, and what sort of weightage it carries on. And on the second part, we do invest in a lot of international startups as well, who primarily want or have India as one of their GTM markets. Because what we think is, and our thesis is, India relatively has not seen enough success stories, right? Apart from Polygon, Bioeconomy,
Yeah.
Push, and few other initial days protocol. There has not been those crazy billion-dollar companies that are emerging out, and the primary reason for that is there's not enough ecosystem over here. Regulatory concern is one thing, but not diving more into it, but it's more about the support system which has to be provided. I mean, in the initial days of the Web 2, where the venture funding was pretty less, and I think the more focus was on how these applications would run, what sort of users would come. I think we are still in those initial phases. And while these startups, they need some stronger partnerships, they need some stronger examples that, hey, what, in India, this billion-dollar company is there. Their vision is pretty clear. They are very sharp on what sort of target they want to achieve, how they're operating, and something. So that's where our second thesis of investing into international companies, and having India as one of their GTM. Then we introduce them to our early stage or India focused companies, and that's where the cross collaboration happens. We were skeptical initially when we took this approach, but I think in last 12 months we have seen enough success stories, and I think we are doubling down on that aspect. So that's more about Levitate. And generally, I mean, the whole team's approach is to support the founders. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether we are investing or not investing or something, but we have a very, very fair approach on, say, if that particular company does not lie in the thesis, we help them with a lot of connections. We organize a lot of demo day events in India and internationally as well. So we give this opportunity to a lot of these founders to come and present with larger set of international VCs, get the feedback, and then move ahead. So our focus is like India success stories, and have some really credible use cases coming out.
Yeah. So I'm a little intrigued around this entire concept of early stage, companies. In my earlier avatar, I used to run an accelerator of my own, like which was focused more on the HR tech space. And these were mostly early stage companies. And what I realized was that it took me about 3 months or so to really figure out if that company would make the cut, right? I mean, that level of engagement was required. And I figured out that, look, there was a lot of effort required to establish product market fit, right? A very critical component. And as part of the product market fit, acquiring the first few customers, right? To really first few paying customers, apart from some pre POCs and so on, to really make sure that is that your customer is actually saying, who's cutting a check, is actually saying that, look, that actually your proposition is actually working for me. And what also happens is that once you have paying customers, then you're showing some revenue. And then when you have revenue, it's much easier to raise capital, right? And then, of course, how do you scale them across geographies and things of that kind? So the challenge really, I mean, I guess to a lot of accelerators and other VC funds would be, how do you really assess an early stage company, right? And how do you really make sure that it is going to be a viable proposition for you, particularly if you're the only fund or the only accelerator which is cutting a check into that particular company? Because in the failure, and you may not have those 3 months like I used to have, because mine was I didn't have a fund. It was only hands-on support to these early stage companies. So I could afford a 3-month dating phase before figuring out whether we had to go the whole way. So I think that could be a significant challenge. So how do you really determine whether this particular startup is viable, uh, whether it is scalable, and whether it can make a difference, in a short period of time?
Yeah. So I think traditionally, if you see, Thomas, I think a lot of these companies who have gone to the next level of success, I think that community orientation has been one of the most fundamental, aspects of in it. And I was debating the earlier day with few of my colleagues saying that why, Web2 founders
Yeah,
or someone, who are coming have not been, predominantly successful, because it's a very different, a complete environment where I think the focus is lot on the users, lot on the other aspects of it. And I think you see that right from the tokenomics perspective, because with founders and advisors, I think it's just 20-25%. Rest is all, for other efforts, which goes on.
yeah,
So I think it's a whole level, different field, and that's why we need those specific founders or that specific ideology if we want to see some success stories. So it right away starts on how big the vision is and
yeah,
how are you going to market that vision, because I think that is one of the most fundamental things. If you are not good into that particular aspect, then it's a very questionable thing, because there are tons of tokens out there, there are tons of
yeah,
innovations happening around. You need to stand out yourselves in some or the other capacity. So we really see that particular, is there a charm, or is there a a fire in that particular team or a founder to
yeah,
make it happen, to make it that sort of a big. And with the valuations that we go in generally in the first round, it's typically early stage, 15 to 30 million, sort of a general valuation range. So we obviously try to see how big this particular thing could be. So for example, if it is a DeFi project, we try to see what sort of other aspects it can be and how big it can be, and what sort of different strategies this team is pushing to really make it happen. And we get the answer over there. Does this team have that capability to do like a 100 or a 200 or a 500 million FTV, or more beyond that? Now
yeah,
we've seen some really crazy stories where from the first round itself, like we knew this founder has that capability to make it beyond $1 billion FTV. And those success stories have spun out because they have like a very specific focus on the
yeah,
what they want to achieve, and they are very very fundamentally aligned onto where this thought process is. Now the second or the other part of also thing is a lot of post the FTX and other things, a lot of founders have been focusing on fundamental part of it. Is this revenue generating? What sort of customer acquisitions has to happen? Do they have the clear roadmap on what the product is the product live, and do they have any sort of customers, what sort of adoption is being there. So certain set of things goes around that.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
mix of all these kind of things. And given our market, I think the hot narratives obviously change after 6 to 12 months, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Absolutely.
last year we saw AI, deepen, and meme coins really burst out, right? This
Yeah.
year we are seeing AI, DeSci, Def AI. I think few
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
things coming up. So we gotta come to that thing, and then we generally evaluate. Yeah.
Absolutely. So now moving, diving a bit deeper into the Indian ecosystem as far as Web3 is concerned. I mean, we keep hearing a lot of positive reports in the press. I mean, we know there are 1,000+ startups. When India contributes to about 12% of the developer pool worldwide, I think second to the US, and people say by 2027 India will be the number one as far as the developer pool is concerned. But I think on the other hand, one also reads about a lot of people who are Indian origin. So they're based here. They, maybe start their business here. They have a dev shop in India, but pretty much, their companies are all incorporated globally, right? And the founders move overseas after they achieve some level of success, raise some amount of capital, and what have you. So, and then, we're not, fully clear about, what the regulatory situation is, and and all that. What's going to happen if somebody wants to list a token in India, and how are the token treated by by the tax people, for the people who will own those tokens, and what have you. So so the question really is that, uh, is it that there is more hype at this point in time, or is this something solid happening at the grassroots level, and we will definitely see 2025 as a year when a lot of founders will emerge, a lot of startups will emerge in the Web3 space, and therefore it becomes very interesting for accelerators and investment vehicles like yours to have a piece of that particular pie. I mean, what's your take on the landscape and what exactly is transpiring there today, and how do you see it changing in, let's say, in the next 12 months?
Yeah. So India is always an interesting, market, right? I mean, if you see the number wise, I think we are the second largest developer pool. I think 12 or 13% share in the entire world is where, these things are. So that's where we see all the ecosystem setting up their local shops, and, like really, helping and supporting these entrepreneurs to build applications on top of them. So it's a very suitable market from a bigger company to come into India, because obviously you have a lot of people, to experiment and play around with. But if you see the startup journey, generally, the reason why we haven't seen a lot of success stories, and still we have got that threshold time, is because we don't have like the bigger capitals coming out from here. We don't have folks who are leading the round, or we don't have people putting up these large check sizes. Now consider a scenario where a very sharp founder, he has some fantastic idea, and he has got the appropriate team to make this thing happen and make it there. If he's sitting over here, there's a very chance, I think, with the angels and with fund like ours, or suppose he can go max 200 250K. He can, there's no way to raise more capital than here. Now the next thing is he wants to have some contacts with venture funds. So it's either the east
Yeah.
part in Singapore, Hong Kong, where he tries to attend some workshops, make some connections, or then head to the US to have similar set of approach. Now since the ecosystem is not in the place, it's very hard for that founder to have communication channels with these folks, and stand him out over there. It's
Yeah.
fundamentally really hard thing to do. And that's where the funding cycles for a lot of these entrepreneurs are really at large, if you compare similar set of talent pools in the other parts of the world. And I
Yeah.
think this will fundamentally change only when we have a lot of support ecosystem in there, and it is happening as we speak. It's not that it's completely not there. Now there are some fantastic projects in the last year that have brewed from India. like BitsCrunch, like Kelp, like Open Ledger, who are, at the cusp of, like cross of 500 million FTV. Now, a lot of these foundations have pledged in to support, these entrepreneurs, and, we are working alongside them to support, this sort of things, and whatever the investors they have on the cap table, or
Yeah,
make sort of a consortium to help their ideas grow and, help them execution. So we're trying to bridge the gap where a founder comes, he's got a fantastic idea, he's got a fantastic team, he's got a fantastic product. Now, just let's help him and, help him close the round and, move to the next, steps of ahead. So it will happen. Good founders obviously, come in trenches. So, it will happen at its own pace. But I
yeah,
think the situation will drastically improve when we have a lot of, venture funds who are focusing on solutions, or, founders who are building over here. One other thing which is a bit back, Thomas, is I think the Web2 industry flourished because the products were made here, which were consumed here. So that
right,
cycle was, pretty much, and that's where we have. I mean, in a city like Bangalore, we have got 200 plus venture capital firms over here,
right.
because they are looking at, all these companies who primarily are serving the audience here, or there. But in Web3, it's very difficult because from day one you have that global market, you have, those other scenarios. So it's taking time, but we will be eventually be there.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think maturing of the ecosystem is a very critical thing. Number one, number two, a significant Web3 market in India, and then we've heard some reports recently of some telcos getting into it very actively. Maybe things will change, right? Also, the government initiatives are happening, so I think they're more on the government side, but I think the concept of blockchain, Web3 will become more mainstream as people start seeing applications around them that they're using, which are more Web3 and sort of blockchain driven. Yeah, but from our perspective, from Zeep's perspective, we're trying to do our bit. We're saying that, look, can we really offer, because one of the things that we see in India is that a lot of founders, the first thing when you meet them is they want a grant, right? I mean, even before, I mean, I don't think the conversation is much around their value proposition and how are they going to make a difference, but it's more around, can we get some money, right, to actually start something, right? So, from our perspective, we have recently launched, with Avalanche L1, we have launched, at a price of which is actually a no-brainer. At $50, you could set up a test net, right? $50 a month. And at $995, you could, have a main net, which, so we've really brought down the costs, the prices is, significantly, and hopefully it should encourage, and we're starting seeing some traction in India. Quite a few Indian founders have started knocking on our doors, and we are having some of these conversations. So so how do you see us being able to, let's say, collaborate with Levitate Labs, given your focus being significant in India, and how do you see some synergies coming out of this?
Yeah. I think what you guys are doing, and with the recent partnerships, I think it's really helpful for a lot of early stage developers who
Yeah,
are still planting on that idea. They have the idea and they want to get into quick execution and quick adoption. I think it's one of the fastest way.
yeah,
I think we can definitely explore a few joint programs, where the startups apply, and then you guys provide some credits, or help them in certain hand holding, and then take it to the last. I think these could be the start of it, and then eventually we can see some strategic help to certain founders who are doing on some use cases, which really matter, here in India. So we've seen like couple of projects that are working with government on the blockchain technology in
yeah.
various government departments, to have it happen. So that could be a fantastic cases as well.
Yeah, no, yeah, great. So finally, Prateek, I don't know, are you traveling to Denver, East Denver? Yeah, so you should join us on the 28th of February at Eat Denver. We are hosting a roll up an app chain day, and Avalanche is going to be co-hosting with us. And we expect some great keynote speakers, some exciting debates on various panels and fireside chats. So that's the third of our roll-up days, roll-up app chain days that we're running. We're very excited, and I think we should catch up in Denver next, right? We don't meet in India, but we'll meet in Denver next year. So thank you so much, Prateek, for your time. It was great to understand your take on the Indian, Web3 startup ecosystem, and some of the challenges that some of these startups are facing, and also the fact that this ecosystem, with the investment environment and so on, that has to evolve, right, to make it a lot more vibrant. But what's your final note? I mean, do you think 2025 something significant will happen with startups in India?
Yeah, definitely. I think we are seeing like large amount of developers coming up with some fresh ideas for some implementations. And if you observe markets in last 2 months, I think not raising from VCs and going for a launch kind of theme is also picking up. So if these
Yeah,
folks are quick enough, they understand how the market sentiment is.
yeah,
They partner with right sort of people and do blast on marketing. I'm pretty sure we'll see some success stories coming out. And apart from that, I think we've also got some global funds who are looking to have some serious investments over here in India. So
right.
hopefully this year is going to be more fruitful for a lot of these companies.
Yeah, that sounds very encouraging and very exciting, and we hope that 2025 something significant will happen here. So thanks so much, Prateek, for your time. It was fantastic chatting with you, and we'll see you in the next couple of weeks in Denver.
बार बार देखो, हजार बार देखो, ये देखने की चीज है हमारा दिलरुबा। ताली हो, ताली हो, ताली हो।